Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm going to share how I altered a sketch to create this fun scrapbook page that records a memory of our family adventure in an escape room. I can't wait to share this project with you. Throughout the month, I have been creating with the Burnished Limitless kit from Not Just for Boys Kit Club. I still have quite a few pieces left in my kit, so I decided to try to use some of them up on my page today. The Limitless kits are always full of so many components, and I always end up with pieces left over that I can use on later projects. This month's challenge is a sketch challenge. You can find the sketch in the Not Just for Boys Facebook group. I do like the idea of the strips of pattern paper on this sketch and all of the little circles, but I think that I might rotate this. I'm going to bring in some of these chipboard elements for my circles and a few additional items from the Essentials kit. As I create this page, I'll be adding a few additional items to the design, and I'll add those to the supply list in the description below. The memory that I'm recording today is of an escape room. I have 3 photos here that I'm going to be using. So I think I'm going to run my sketch sideways and place these photos horizontally instead of vertically. I also want to place my pattern paper strips behind the photo. I like the idea of having some paper strips at the base of my page. But with the other elements that I plan to add, I think I'm just going to place some matching paper strips behind my photo instead. To frame that photo, I am going to bring in some chipboard pieces and a few circular elements. I haven't decided what color I want to make the chipboard yet, so I'm just laying them in place until I make my decision. On the larger circle, there was a toolbox image on top of the suitcase. This didn't quite fit the theme, so I laid another suitcase over the top. This is a really easy way to alter a die cut that doesn't quite fit your photos. The escape room theme was Old London, and it was a mystery escape room, so these little bits and pieces are going to fit that theme perfectly. I don't think that I'm going to add as many circles to the layout as it shows in the sketch. Instead, I'll just place a few around the photo as anchors, and then I'll add a few at the base of the page where my title's going to sit. Near the base of the page, I'm going to add a pattern paper strip, and I want to add some more circles. I couldn't find many in the die cut pack that I thought would work for the page, so I'm going to cut out a few images from one of the pattern paper sheets. Sometimes I have a hard time using background patterns like this in their entirety, so I usually cut them apart and use them as elements on my page. I like how this has a large clock piece because we had a huge timer in our escape room, and this speaks to that part of the memory. Now that I have an idea of where these pieces are going to sit, I'm going to mark their placement with a pencil and add a little bit of stenciling to my page. I have placed some ink onto my glass board, and I'm mixing in some modeling paste to create a soft gray-brown shade of paste. I'm using the gear stencil in the kit, and I'm going to add this pattern above and below the photo. Not much of this is going to show, but it will create a nice frame and add some texture to the design. The ink I mixed the paste with is a distress ink. I find that water-based inks work best when mixed with modeling paste. I have used distress oxides before when I need to use a specific color, but sometimes the pigment in the ink creates a little bit of separation in the paste. Now that my modeling paste is dry, I'm going to bring in some stenciling. This is one of my favorite stencils to use on backgrounds because it creates a great geometric design. I'm using weathered wood ink, and I'm adding this image in 3 spots on my page. These are the main areas where my embellishment clusters are going to sit, and this grid is going to help provide a little backdrop behind those items. Before I continue, I want to paint my chipboard pieces so that they have time to dry. These chipboard pieces have not been prepped with gesso because I want the spray that I'm using to soak into the chipboard. I'm using Nuvo Mica Mist to create a layer of color on the items. Before the ink dries, I'm going to bring in some acrylic paint and brush a little bit of it over the pigment. These two are going to react with each other and create a deep blue color on the images. Because this is a matte acrylic paint, it's also going to soften the shine of the mist. Once those two layers are dry, I'm going to come back in with some more black acrylic paint and add a little bit of stippling to the chipboard pieces. I'm just using an old paintbrush that came with a child's watercolor kit. These bristles are falling out and this paintbrush is quite a mess, but it works great for adding texture to chipboard pieces. After letting these dry for a few moments, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of copper to these. In the photos, the gears have a copper color and I want to mimic that look on my page. I'm using an embossing ink dauber to add a little bit of ink to the edges of these pieces, and then I'm going to sprinkle some of the penny powder over the top. If your paint is still wet or tacky, some of that powder might stick where you don't want it to go. I just took a paintbrush and removed the excess. The little flyaways that remain will add some texture to the pieces. Now I'm going to heat these with a heat tool. You're going to be able to see that the spots with full coverage turn a lovely copper color, and the bits that didn't quite get brushed off give a nice worn metal texture. If you don't have embossing powder, you could also use a paint pen or some copper modeling paste to add this type of look to your chipboard. All right, now that those are finished, I'm going to start adding my items to the page. I'm going to place this white cardstock onto some garage pattern paper. Before I adhered this down, I did rough up the edges and add some ink to create a little bit of a frame. At the base of the page, I'm adding a paper strip that is similar to the one in the sketch. This is going to create a nice grounding point on the page with the title and other elements. Off camera, I added some stitching to that strip of paper, and I stitched the other pattern paper strips in place. Now I'm going to start adding all the fun layers to this design. I popped up the photo on some foam strips to make room for those chipboard pieces. Below the photo, I added a strip of wooden boxes. It's really hard to tell that these are little wooden boxes, but they do add a nice natural element and create a grounding strip below that photo. If you're not familiar with what an escape room is, they are puzzle rooms designed for groups of people to solve. There's always a storyline with a final piece or prize that you need to acquire before the time runs out. The escape room we attended was themed after old Sherlock books and movies. In one part of the escape room, you walked down a back alleyway with the payphone and old pipes and steam vents. So those are the types of elements that I wanted to add to my page. I also added that violation parking sign above. If you've ever been to an escape room, you know that cell phones are not to be used, but the mom in me could not help snagging a photo or two of my kids solving the puzzles. I ended up being reprimanded over the loudspeaker, and my kids are never going to forget that one. At the base of the page, I wanted to bring in those items that I cut from the pattern paper, but I needed to figure out my title first. I'm not sure exactly where I want to add it, so I'm laying the letters out onto some acetate first so that I can see if it's going to fit the space. This is a really easy way to determine the spacing and placement of titles that you're creating with sticker letters. I just need to adjust the spacing a little bit and I can go ahead and adhere all of these down. So I went ahead and placed that title where it needed to go. I also adhered that clock element in place and trimmed it flush with the base of the page. The burnished kit did not come with any phrase stickers, but as you know, I like adding them to my pages. So I just rated my past Not Just for Boys kits and found this Go Team sticker, which fits the page perfectly. I feel like I need to add a few more circles to this page, so I'm going to add another below the photo for my journaling. This blue die cut came with the kit, and I'm going to use this to write my story. Off camera, I used Canva to create my journaling in a circular shape. If you're not sure how to create your journaling in shapes, I do have a video explaining this, and I'll put that link in the description below. Now that this is cut out, it fits perfectly over that die cut. I'm just going to add a little bit of ink around the edges, and then I'll adhere it in place. Again, I'm looking at that sketch thinking I don't have very many circles, so I'm going to bring in a few more to the page. Sometimes a sketch simply inspires you and your finished piece looks nothing like the original. I think that's the great thing about sketches. You can recreate your page exactly like the sketch, or just use elements you like and incorporate them into your own design. So I'm looking at that clock at the base of the page and it's just not feeling finished. So I'm going to add one more little pipe down here as a horizontal grounding strip, and then I'll share the finished layout with you. I didn't do much more other than tack that pipe in place and add a few enamel stickers. I placed some dots above and below the photo to create some diagonal flow, and I added some heart shapes near the title to look like chevrons. I'm going to share a few close-ups of this layout so that you can see all the fun details. This layout was created to record the memory of our family getting together to solve an escape room puzzle. I was inspired by the March challenge sketch and chose items from the sketch to incorporate into my design. The circular elements and paper strips were added onto other areas of the page, creating a completely new design that fit my photos perfectly. If you're one who enjoys pinning photos to inspiration boards, I have added still shots of this layout on the Not Just for Boys Kit Club blog and on my website for you to use. If you would like more ideas for using this kit, you can join the Not Just for Boys Kit Club community on Facebook and see even more designs. I want to thank you for joining me today for another scrapbook project. If you have any questions about the project or the supplies listed below, feel free to post those in the comments. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.